Remember that you can support the podcast via Patreon. The link is below. Otherwise, stay tuned for the podcast starting now.
It's an isolation party. It's you and me are the guests, and there's nothing between us but a few hundred kilometers and couple of fiber lines,
Yeah.
and the law and the global catastrophe. Other than
Yeah.
that,
The law's a bit stricter your side of the world than it is mine.
oh, that's right. You're over in the UK. Hey, I know it's you and your partner are in different countries, but I thought you were the one that was here.
No. I'm here in the UK, so
Okay.
we allowed outside at least.
Bloody
We allowed
shouldn't be, damn it.
we can go and for a run if we want.
Man, I wish I
Under
could ride my bicycle. Like, I kind of understand the rule that says you're not, but like, I was self isolating for about close to 10 days, 12 days, and with the occasional mission to the shops, and I went like. I was actually like finding myself needing to go out and do stuff much more often than I wanted to. Like, going to the pharmacy, which was terrifying because it was full and people have no understanding of like distance. In Holland, my buddy Sebastian lives in Holland. He posted a picture in the pharmacy and in the grocery store. They put red stickers on the ground about the size of a soccer ball, and they're about 2 meters apart. And that they go out the store and down the road on the pavement. And so you have to stand that far away from each other, and it like takes you the queue, keeps the queue orderly, makes everything make sense. Discam, not Discam, sorry, my local pharmacy, you just stand in a queue, and like a lot of South Africans, you think the tighter you squeeze the queue, the longer the faster you'll get to the front. Now you got like 15 people in there, like two or three that are clearly sick. You don't know with what, but they're not lacquer at all, and they're coughing and spluttering and snotting. Then you've got like people that look like they're just picking up their meds, like me, and you've got like pharmacists running their tits off. Now the place is packed. There's like 20 people in the queue, and there's normally like four, and a couple of other people putzkering around and shopping. And then normally you've got two queues, right, to get to like the pharmacist oaks at the back, that pharmacy all day. You've got the self-medication queue, so that's like over-the-counter shit like Carenza and Iliadin and AC200 that anyone can buy, Miprodol that anyone can buy, but they're like, you can't just take them off the shelves. And the other queue is like prescriptions. So now everyone has formed one queue, which sort of makes sense. Okay, but then I see the two different sides of humanity in one moment. I see Karin walk in and stand in on her own in the self-service queue, watching four pharmacists, two of whom have clearly got the sniffles and don't look well. The staff are all in there. I shop there every month, and there's never more than two pharmacists. Okay, but I've kind of met them all over the course of the last 2.5 years. There's like, they're like a little cast of a sitcom. There's like the handsome black dude. There's the short fat chick. There's the old guy who looks like he probably runs the place. There's the very jolly kind of Ned Flanders oak. They're all there. Never are there more than two at a time. Now there's five, and they're running their tits off. And they're sanitizing their hands every time anyone touches anything, and they fucking look stressed. And this Karen comes up and she stands in the empty other queue and goes, Excuse me, can I get some service? Excuse me, I need service. True's fucking God. I'm allowed to swear on this podcast. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Good. Beep me otherwise. And she's and you can see now two of the pharmacists look up, the ones whose heads are not so down because they're like busy, being hectic. And they're kind of, for a moment, I'm like, I giggled, I laughed. My favorite thing when people are being dicks is to laugh at them, whether that's in traffic or in, at the gym or whatever. If you just laugh at someone, it either enrages them or embarrasses them. Either way, it's better than anything you could say. So I just laugh at her, and the one dude just decides, okay, shit, let me get rid of this chick. Like, okay, yes, can I help you? Like, I'm not going to tune her. I want to lose a customer. Customer's always right. But you could see the moment where he was like, obviously, this queue doesn't exist, so you don't have to fucking wait, Karen. So I was just basically saying that I saw the best and the worst of people in the pharmacy. And so I've been isolating for quite a while, and I've had to go out and do stuff like that and get my bike sorted out. And I was kind of hoping to ride it. I get it. Like in my boom neighborhood, you could, ride or jog or push your pram around or your dog without getting within, well, not 100 meters, but 30 meters of another human. But like, if everybody wants to do that in busy areas, Cape Town, CBD, whatever, like I saw some stuff in Italy. They're like, hosing down the streets with disinfectant. You never know how much of this is true, but I tend to err towards, like, if I hear something and it's interesting and I think, shit, if that's true, it's worth looking into, I tend to kind of Google it. And it seems like, the thing can last, which is unusual for a virus. It can last out in the open for a few hours, even a day, or two on certain surfaces. Obviously, that's special. So not special circumstances have to be in place. But Joe Rogan mentioned that they said that in certain strains, under the right conditions on the right surfaces, that can last up to 13 days. I'm like, fuck me. Imagine this thing lives on a surface for 13 days, and then somebody, as the quarantining ends, touches it. So who knows? I mean, that's also like, they say you can be contagious for up to 14 days before you start showing symptoms, or you won't show symptoms at all. But that's like a maximum scenario. It's normally like 5 days or so. Still, we're in a shit show.
Mm. I think the whole world is, and it's like, well, my wife works in the health professions here, so um, yeah, she gets a little bit of news in that from the Vine, or Vine, and I have doesn't well from what she said and what I've read up in that, I don't think it's as bad as people think it is.
Yeah.
I do think it is something we should be concerned about, but I don't think it's something that we have to be, yeah, be maniacs about. But yeah, definitely think, well, like there are some places, obviously Italy and Spain being the big ones at the moment, that are really battling with it. Maybe just because of, I don't know, the way close proximity that people live, or whether or not they just put in their lockdowns like a bit too late, or they didn't really anticipate it. Testing was down. I don't know. It's quite a weird time we live in.
Look, I'm impressed in terms of the South African government, where I have very little faith very little faith in or love for. Um, just as a performance based appraisal of an organization running itself and then its employees, etc. Only massive corporate organization where the employees pay the employer and then get really really shit service. But I'm aware of exactly how much tax I pay every year, and it's a lot. And this government sucks. But I can kind of see they could have just ignored it or waited until it was much too late. But at the same time, it's in their self-interest. It's not this noble heroic act that now all of the Santon Sharons are like, that Cyril Ramaphosa is so lacquer. He's like the best president ever since Nelson. It's like, yeah, they kind of got the business interests together and went, look, if our labor force and our health sector and all businesses, if we end up with loads and loads of dying people, it's a worst case scenario than loads and loads and loads of people unable to work and locking it down. I think we're just lucky that it kind of started here a little bit after Europe, and they could see what happened they have case studies. They've got case studies for what happens if you lock down early, if you don't lock down at all. Like in America, it's deep, man. I've got friends there. My one buddy is very active on social media. He loves to post stories and that. And I mean, he's basically like, my buddy Rocco is like the ice. He's got the coronavirus, and he's like sick. He doesn't feel like he's going to die, and he hasn't yet felt like he needs to go to hospital. But man, he's not happy, and he's very vocal about it. So his name is Rocco Chiaricella. That's very hard to spell, but it's Rocco, Ohrocco. Handsome bastard with dark hair and a bit of a beard, and he's great. He's a professional cosplayer and barman in the States. He's a brilliant dude. I met him when me and my buddy Gump and his wife Tree were there in New York on holiday, and we ended up just going to the nearest bar, which was a sports bar. As it happens, it was the last kind of bar we'd normally go to, but it was right over the road, and this guy was the best. And so he's a fascinating guy to follow, even if you're not, even outside of the time of Corona. But like, he's sick, man. He looks like he's got like very bad flu plus 50% worse than very bad flu. He's able to constantly post Instagram stories explaining how bad he feels. But it looks like New York is seriously like spiraling well out of control there. I think this happens anywhere where there's dense population. But again, I'm not an expert.
No, yeah, it's interesting to see as well that the places like you would think like Bangladesh, India, and that are heavily densely populated areas. I haven't heard too much coming out of there regarding numbers and that. So I wonder if they're doing that on purpose.
There's a website which I'll try to find now. My buddy
Yeah.
Chris, the people are sharing it all the time. COVIDvisualizer.com that lets you actually spin around the world. Now, this doesn't help Americans because they don't know what all the other where all the other countries are. Libya has one active. Chad has three active, zero dead, zero recovered. Somalia, three active, zero dead, zero recovered. Guys, can you stop making me have to click everything in order to? Sorry, functionality on the site sucks a bit. India, 767 active, 20 dead, 73 recovered today, plus 133 cases. So it's on in India. They're a bit behind, but it's on. They went if they got 133 plus today, taking them to 767. That's an increase of about a little under a quarter in a day. And also bear in mind with the official results, that's inside the healthcare system. South Africa's results are almost all from the private sector, private healthcare sector. So that's only medical aid, hospitals, like what are they called, mediclinics, those kind of places, not like small rural community clinics and that kind of thing, and not you know very sick, underprivileged people who just stay home when they're very sick and literally couldn't even walk to the faraway taxi point, even if they wanted to get to a hospital they can't pay for, that probably can't test them. So those tests, I mean, people, I mean, I got friends who had it and they have subsequently recovered from it and were just about to come out of isolation after 2 full weeks of being in ice. They were two of the first people to get it, but they never got their test results back. They got really sick. They went to hospital. This was like 3 weeks ago. The hospital said to them, "Look, we'll test you. All the symptoms are right. It looks like you've got this thing. Take the test." They spent the night in hospital. They got like put on respirators and whatever, and they said, "Look, you guys don't need to be on respirators, and until you really can't breathe or you feel your heart rate is massively escalated and like you feel like your heart's taking strain, just stay home and take all these medicines and don't come back unless you really genuinely think you might die." And they never got their test results back. They phoned about it a few times. They just literally, they had the test. They went to the private hospital. They had medical aid. They had corona. They've subsequently gotten through it and still don't know what the official result was. So, I mean, if you can have it, go to a private hospital, get privately tested, and still not get the result, how accurate are our testing metrics? Also, keep in mind, a test seems to take between 3 and 7 days. So, whatever they announced today, that's the cases from a week ago
Mm.
that we know
And
of in private hospitals. It's a
yeah,
shit
so
show.
yes, it's going to be quite a shit show. And I just worry as well from a South African perspective that if it does like get into the rural townships and that and rural parts of the country, yeah, then
The
it's going to be
townships and
real.
stuff is a giant fuck show. The rural parts are a little bit better, still a
Mm,
giant fuck show, but like space in between people
mm,
is yeah, and dude, I promise you, like I just got so spitting mad at those videos of these giant street parties with young people out jolling, singing the Corona song. I've never wanted to machine gun people so badly in my life. Like it brought out a feeling of hatred in me that's not healthy to have. It's not healthy to feel that way about another human being, no matter what they're doing. It's the kind of feeling I would have if I saw someone molesting a child. Like I wanted to run at them with my bare hands and teeth and fingernails and kill all of them. And then I was like, okay, fuck, they're just ignorant. They just don't understand. Like forgive them for they know not what they do. But we have a culture in South Africa, massive culture in South Africa across many languages and ethnicities and cultures where people the children are raised by the grandparents while the parents of those children, the children of the grandparents, the middle generation goes and works. That's the case, on multiple income levels. I've got colleagues that I know who do just that. Their kids, they work with me in different agencies and they go about their job and their kids get minded by the grandmother who lives at the house with them. Like these kids that are dancing and singing are going to be the reason Gorgor drowns in her own mucus. And that's what really fucks me. And then it's like not just a tragedy because someone's died, which is obviously by far the worst part of it, but then it's like a huge fuck up for the economy because now these, when they try to go back to their jobs and whatever, these individuals um, have no one to mind the child because they fucking murdered Gorgor by singing Corona and dancing in the fucking street like it's a joke. And I know, again, this is not culture specific. I know similar stuff is going on in England with, the blokes and the lads and that sort of party crowd. There's been talk, there was some of this in LA. It seems now they've locked LA down, and it's people are starting to take it seriously. Joe Rogan and Joey Diaz were on yesterday, and he was talking about how in Vegas, like some people were just like coming up to them and trying to shake their hands, and you know, not at all changing their behavior. And
Mm.
so it's certainly not only South African young people, but God, it made me angry, man.
So if Corona doesn't get them, Gord will get them.
No, dude, but
Um,
that's the thing. I try really hard not to let other people's behavior upset me. But when I saw that like defiant, flippant, haha, fuck you, it's
mm,
just based entirely on ignorance. I know that. But like, they're gonna, like, these young people across the world are going to kill their own grandparents, and you
mm,
don't need to be
mm,
a grandparent to die from it. There's
mm.
Chad Leclos apparently got it, or Cameron Vandenberg. Sorry, I get I
Cameron,
get I
yeah,
get our heroic swimmers confused. They're all handsome, blonde, and fucking much better looking
chiseled.
than me. Yeah. Um, anyway, yeah, he's like he's kind of recovered from it, but says he's feeling lasting effects. Like he's lethargic, he can't exercise, he doesn't have his sense of taste and smell back, and we don't know how much of that does return. I mean, there's people who've also apparently had it, got better, and are now testing clear of it, but their sense of taste and smell still hasn't come back, and they still don't have like proper cardio. They're out of breath all the time. So it
Mm,
doesn't even need to kill you, and by no means do you need to be old for it to kill you. But there's a much higher chance of it killing or permanently damaging you with each sort of decade of life you're in, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and so on. Like your
mm.
percentage goes up significantly. As a fat bastard in my late 30s, I'm not very keen on this thing either because it gets your lungs and your heart, and that's where us fatties struggle.
Yeah, so hence why you've been self-isolating before the lockdown.
Truly, I self isolated obviously for my own protection, but just as much for everybody else's. I
Yeah.
understand the way that unlike Corin from Facebook, who once heard someone talking about it on the news, or has a friend who once posted something, so therefore it's true. I look things up when I want to find out more about them, and I've understood virology for a while. Like, hey, here's a thing that Corin doesn't know. Like, germs, technically, usually, although it's a colloquialism, refers to bacteria, not viruses. Bacteria is a different thing than viruses. Like, it's not just you get sicknesses and this is the bad one. Viruses are like, technically they're not even classified as living entities. They need to, it's almost like, to use a layman's term, and if I don't want someone who's listening to this to then furiously beat their keyboard to death because I've got it slightly technically wrong, but a virus is almost like a self-sustaining little piece of DNA code that can survive. It needs a cell host in order to survive, and it can only attach itself to certain types of cells. And it will have adapted and mutated to become able to live in a certain animal's cells, and usually cause an amount of damage that the animal with legacy immunity. But essentially, it's like a bad instruction that gets into your DNA, and it's not like a living thing. And this one is the thing. The thing about this one, which is nowhere near as dangerous as other viruses like Ebola and SARS, and I'm not sure if it's bird flu or yeah, it's there are viruses with a much higher mortality rate, and this thing is worldwide on, I think, let's see, 25,000 deaths. So that's a lot. But, the other viruses in the last 20 or 30 years have killed way more people. I'm trying to remember now which one it is that got 60 or 70,000 people at some point in the last 20 years. The problem is the nature of its contagiousness. Uh, it's the fact that it's so contagious, and the fact that even though, like, most people just get a debilitating respiratory illness that it gets, I think, 3 to 5% of people. Death rate is increasing. I'm looking at it now, 4.53%. Everyone's been saying 2 and 3% for a long time, and now it looks like 5%. So 5 out of every 100 people die. That's a lot. You would imagine quite a few get really close to death and come back permanently damaged. You would imagine even more get subtle damage that they don't realize. So they're going to, when this is all said and done, and they go, but I survived Corona, and they try and get back on the treadmill to do their high intensity techno fucking cardio, they're going to drop dead because they don't realize their heart is damaged. So it's a shit show, in the sense that it spreads so easily, and like I said before, it lives on surfaces. It You can be contagious for, depending on which experts you believe, minimum 3, maximum 14 fucking days before you show symptoms, and in some cases you don't show symptoms at all, like Idris Elba, who's positive and asymptomatic. um, so it's the fact that, like, to contain it, what you need, like, you need to isolate every person, stop all human beings from coming into contact with each other, and wait for everyone that's had it to either die or completely recover. And that's why, for me, like, we've gone from no cases to 5 cases to we're getting close to 1,000 cases now in South Africa. It says here also we've had our first 2 deaths.
Yeah,
That's
two in
today.
the Western Cape. Yeah,
So 913. We've gone from 3 to 1,000 in like 2 weeks, and
mm.
that's the results from 5 days ago. That's as I said before, that's the formal sector results, the private healthcare sector results, and if everybody were to stay completely isolated, 3 weeks would probably do the trick. But you need like 2 people to still have it, or to be coming out of it and not properly be out of it, or to be like recovering, but family members bringing them soup, and that person catches it halfway through. It's a dog show. The Spirit's a proper fuck show.
Yeah, it's yeah with the self isolation and that. Um, yeah, from the testing side of things, from what I've heard as well over here, that they've only been testing people that they think may have it, and testing vulnerable people. So they said obviously that does skew the results when you're looking at the mortality rate of things, because yeah, they just aren't. There's not they can't test enough people to get a good understanding of it.
Well, my homie
Um,
Rocco, that I told you about from New York, he doesn't have he's got healthcare. There's a shit show. Like, it's so expensive. The
mm,
medical insurance or medical aid is so expensive and inaccessible. He's got some sort of entry level medical insurance, but it was only enough to go to a certain type of clinic. And they said to him, like, we're not going to test you. You look like you've got it. You've probably got it. Go to the hospital if you like start to feel like you're dying. And like, he's got it. Like, he doesn't know for sure because he hasn't had a test, but like, what are the chances he, a barman, person who has contact with loads of other people and their drinking glasses, gets a thing with all of the exact symptoms as kind of mid-level COVID-19, sort of 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10 severity COVID-19. Like, how many people like him? He went to the medical authorities and said, "Hey guys, I've got this thing," and they said, "You probably have. Looks like you have, but you look like you're okay. You're walking around, and you came here on your own 2 feet to complain to us. So, when you can't stand up, call a friend, go to the hospital, and leave us alone until then. Take Tylenol." And like, that guy is every bit as contagious as the person who does need hospitalization and does get a test.
Yeah, I was also speaking to I spoke to Rich Mulholland last week, so about the new normal and yeah what this is doing for business side of things, and how it's affecting his business as well as others, but he's also saying like how he fears economic collapse more than the invisible warrior, saying that at some point even if we want to contain this, and obviously try to stamp it out. But at some point, people are going to have to return to their jobs and work to get the economy ticking over.
Yeah,
And it might not be gone by then.
yeah.
You might just have to risk it.
Well, he's right. I mean, that's kind of a point that I've meandered around and took a long time to try to make. Is that locking down for 3 weeks is a great way to stop the. But I mean, there's also to Richard's point, flattening the curve. I have no problem with the concept. I just immediately become very sensitive to any word that becomes jargon, where people who don't know what they're talking about start using it to sound like they're informed and part of the conversation. Like, flatten the curve, guys. It's like, you don't know what that means. But the idea of, let's say, 20%, 30%, 60% of us have to get it. Whatever, just Siri, it must shut the fuck up. I think it's my iPad. I was drawing on it before you called me. Um, you know, if however many of us need to get it, even if 100% of us need to get it at some point, and it's never going to go away, and everyone at some point in their lives going to get it, and you know, it's going to be like measles back in the day, where like everyone got it and it killed a lot of people until we figure out a vaccine. Glory be unto science. We need to not all get it at the same time. So that's why win, lose, or draw, this is a good measure. But Richard is dead right when he says people have to get back to work, not just so they can sustain themselves and have a living, but just so that the country can continue operating. I mean, like eventually you're not going to be able to get things if no one's making them and distributing them and doing the accounts about it. But yeah, it's a lot of doom and gloom about COVID, and I'm pretty sure this is all stuff that any sensible people probably have heard already. But that's my take on it, and that's how I'm dealing with it. But I really am like, again, these are horrible circumstances, and I'm by no means celebrating this, but I am really making the most of it. Like I've got a huge fire lit under my ass, man. I'm starting a little business. It's gonna need a bit of time to get going. I'm doing lots of work on it. I'm doing all of my creative things that I kind of always bitch that I wish I had time for, because whatever it is that you do, in my case, I like to write stories and humorous rhyming poems, and I like to draw cartoons, and I play a bit of bass guitar. It's like you say, I wish I had time for this shit, you know, like I wish I could just get some time and do those things that I enjoy. But then a Sunday rolls around where you have nothing to do and you've got a lazy day and you're kind of knackered and you just want to put your feet up. And you also like, then you pick the thing up, especially if it's your bass guitar, but even if it's your cartooning iPad, and you're like rusty, you know, you're not as good as you were when you were doing it often, when you used to do it a lot. And you know, aside from a poem, which I can pretty much always bang out if I've got some time and a funny idea, you know, you play bass for half an hour and now your fingers really hurt. You used to play when you were younger for 2 hours a day and practice with a band 3 times a week. You know, your cartoons, like you can still draw, but you just don't have the. You keep trying to do a T-Rex like you've always used to be able to do, and you're screwing the eyes up over and over, and you get a bit impatient, and you're like, "Oh fuck it, I'll do it another time." So I'm giving myself like a to-do list of stuff that's fun and rewarding, but important. And I'm starting a little business around it, and I've worked out the numbers and the logistics. And you know, assuming humans with a little bit of money to spare to buy what I'm going to sell, as long as like we don't end up in the Mad Max apocalypse where no one has money and we work on the cannibalism slash barter system, this business is actually viable. And it just needs me to, or at least it looks like it is to me. And it just needs me to sit and make the stuff, or design it is a better way to describe it. I don't want to give too much away. Or why not? It's a publishing company called Rhino Fish Publishing, and I'm going to publish a couple of my children's books that people have always said to me, these rhyming stories like, dude, you need to do your cartoons and illustrate this and make it a book. I've been talking to publishers for the last few weeks, and I've slowly realized that how their business model works and everything that they offer that you have to pay them for. Publishers don't pay you, you pay them. They help you with the things that you in theory don't know how to do, like editing your book and doing draft after draft, and it takes months to do a book. I write these things in an hour, and that's not bragging. I just sit down and write the thing. It takes an hour, less even if it's short. And then they put you in touch with an illustrator who they then manage, and they then put a markup on that, and then they put you in touch with printers, and they manage the printing process and explain to you what the technical things are: paper grammage, different types of binding, that kind of stuff. I made magazines for 8 years, so I know that shit well. And then they, you pay £400 for the printing, of which 100 they've put on. You pay them £400 for back and forth editing your story, draft after draft, and making sure your grammar's right. I don't need that. And for managing the illustrator that some of your money goes to. And I'm like, well, I do the illustrations myself. I know about pagination and printing from magazines, and I don't need anyone to edit the story for me and my grammar. And um, I also can do distribution online. And so you look at the numbers, and it's like, dude, if you sell 200 books at 100 rand each, it's double your return on printing 200. And if you sell 1,000, you make 100K for a book that you can do in a week, 2 or 3 if you're going slowly. And if you do that, if you pump out one a month, and slowly but surely they tick over to the 1,000 mark, that's a very good return on the time you put in. And then if every now and again Gwyneth Paltrow gets a hold of one and tweets that it was a very sweet story, if you sell 10,000 of a book, you make 1 million rand clean profit. So and I know a thing or two about advertising as well. So a little bit of Facebook spend, a little bit of, like a little bit of advertising boosting into the right mommy groups, and suddenly 1,000 copies of each book doesn't feel impossible.
Yeah, and I think as well, like if that's like really good, because I'm also thinking down the same lines as you. I'm trying to use this time as constructively as possible, thinking up different business kind of stuff. I've 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 always been creative, but in my career so far and the work I've been doing, it doesn't really offer
What are your
any.
outlets? What do you like to do creatively?
Well, I used to love to draw by hand and that, but I feel like I've lost a bit of that. So
Pick it up, son. Pick it up. What do you draw with? Pen, pencil, coal?
pencil,
Yeah,
pencil
I'm
generally.
I'm a line art guy. I've always liked like really smooth, slidey. I was going to say the inside of something, but let's say inside of your cheek. That kind of gel point pen on white paper,
Mm,
drawing in lines, and I've got an iPad Pro with pencil, and I bought it so that I could draw and tune with it,
mm,
specifically for that purpose. I was involved with a deeply satanic girlfriend for a couple of years, and I was very sort of preoccupied with that. And I bought the thing, and I sort of started to use it, and I couldn't figure out how to do a couple of things that I know how to do in Photoshop, because obviously Procreate, which is also made by Adobe, it's similar to Photoshop, but it's different. So now I can't figure out how to quick mask, and I watch a tutorial, and it doesn't quite explain it, and I just put it down and leave it, and I'm too busy being intoxicated by the fucking satanic magical heroin vagina of this evil woman. And the next thing you know, I've had my iPad Pro for 3 years and I've hardly drawn on it. And this is like, now I'm picking it up with the pencil, and it's the best, dude. If you like to draw and you've got a bit of spare time, especially if you guys are about to isolate, and if they're about to lock you down, and you've got a little bit of money to spare, because I mean, I know not everyone has, and even people who live reasonably well are now suddenly thinking like, oh shit, I'm going to have to eat my savings. That's what I'm doing, dude. I'm living on my savings. I'm fortunate enough that I can do it for a couple of months, but then that's me. That's all my money. And I was about to buy the fucking apartment next door. Like I was going to take cash, put it down as a deposit, and buy my net. But like the place next to mine is identical to mine, except it's the mirror image. I live in a very standard Douglasdale townhouse complex. It's like an archetypal, fucking as typical as you get. And I got a garden unit, and the O's next to mine was on sale. And I stuck my head in. I asked about the price. It was a good price. The Oak was struggling to sell it. Kitchen's nicer than mine. And I thought, shit, when I get some money in, I'm going to go buy it. And then my rent, the bond will probably work out similar to what I'm paying in rent. And that was what I was going to use this money for. Long story short, I was behind on a few tax returns, and all of them paid me back. Because, yeah, I've got a great tax lady, and I overpay in tax. So a lot of freelancers and contractors do. You kind of have to. So, like very lucky that I've got some cash to live on, unless this thing takes months to go away, but also a bit bummed that I'm literally eating a house I was going to buy. But the point is, if you don't already have an iPad Pro, if you have an iPad Pro, go get a pencil, you sorted. They, in Rand, they're about two and a half thousand Rand. Expensive, like everything Apple. They could probably still make a profit selling it for half that, but their model works that the price is as much as people will pay. The thing is worth what people will pay for it. But dude, it's a big capital outlay. But if you like to draw, get that. Takes a day of drawing to get used to the feeling of the stylus, the pencil on the screen, and then you can set your brushes to be pencils, paint, charcoal, fucking texture maps. It's pressure sensitive. If you change the angle of it, it like shades. It's fucking amazing. And I'm really glad I bought this thing, and then always felt a bit like shit. I bought that thing and never used it. Bit of like guilt as to having wasted money, and a bit of regret, like, oh, it wasn't the great toy I thought it would be. But now, dude, I'm just sitting with my head in this thing drawing cartoons like for half of the day, and then working on my new veggie garden, and playing my bass guitar. I promised myself I'll play it every day, even if it's only for 5 minutes, and that's going well. And I'm writing these stories, and I'm also updating my website. Every day I put something on my website, whether it's something new or whether it's an old piece of work that I've been meaning to put up. And now my website, like, it's never got the things on it it's meant to have. It's meant to be a bit of a portfolio, like with some of my better work, and when I win an award and a bit of news, like Buttfighter has launched its trailer, and Buttfighter has launched on PC, and Buttfighter has won bookmark awards. There's not a word about Buttfighter on my fucking website, because as soon as I get on it, I write an opinion piece about something or a funny poem about manatees at the Olympics. um, but I'm on that, I'm writing something for the site every day, and I'm not like keeping on myself so strictly that like I'm beating myself with a rod if I don't get my long to-do list done. But I am realizing, and this is something I think everyone can try to take out of this, is that if you can find a way to take the things you love doing and have always wanted to do and never have time for, except that one Sunday now and then where you don't feel like it, if you can take those things and see them like your job for now. And I know a lot of people are working from home, so they're not all about free time, they're just stuck in the house. But those people who are sitting with nothing to do, fretting about money, treat your passions and your hobbies as if it's your job for this time. And you are your own boss, and you're going to cuck on yourself if you're slacking, and you're going to give yourself a pat on the back if you have a very productive day. Because I haven't enjoyed being this busy for a long time. Like I think to myself, it's like midnight. I'm like, shit, I need to go to bed. I'm going to be really tired tomorrow, but I don't want to stop. I'm like into it, and I wake up in the morning, and I'm like, sweet, like I got to draw this, and this. I'm amped, man, and it sucks that it takes this kind of a horrible circumstance, but I'm seeing it as an opportunity to. If I can make this stuff pivot my career so that this becomes the main focus of my career, even over time, what a magical thing that would be. But in terms of more like mainstream actual job work stuff, just as an advertising consultant and a brand consultant, I think it's a shit show. Like, I have not earned a cent in March, and I had a very good January and February after a slow end to the year. Not a single piece of paying work. Did a voiceover or two, but that was probably at the end of February, if I think about it. But my main job is obviously consulting as a creative director and brand strategist, and if people can afford me, a copywriter. But like, I do work for one of South Africa's biggest national sporting teams. I don't want to mention them because I don't want my personal opinions as expressed in this podcast to besmirch the brand. But they use me as their whole agency, and it's a big brand. And like, they pay less than half to use me as what a small or medium agency, but even a small agency would charge them to put like six nitwits on it some of the time. I bring on like a designer and for one or two little pieces, an animator, and if I need to, a social media manager, but I don't usually. And I pay them more than they get from their jobs, and a fair and upper level freelance rate. And I make double what an agency would pay me to do the same work for them, which would still be higher than an employee would get on salary. So I'm making triple what I'd make on salary. A brand is paying half to a third of what they would pay a cheap agency, and they're getting far more expertise. Because I mean, I was an exec. I've reached the most senior levels of ad agency employment. I'm definitely by no means the greatest. I mean, there's incredibly like amazing ECDs, executive creative directors in South African advertising, like Fran Lucken and Peter Curry and Don Bryan and Brent Singer, even though he's moved overseas. And we've got like Jenny Glover. We've got powerful people who are way better than me. But I mean, I can jawl, and I just don't want to work in an agency. Especially the more senior you get, the more insanely demanding they are of your time and your stress, and you have to give so much of a shit. But like, the opportunity is that I think a lot of brands and companies and businesses that need advertising, that were just about able to afford a small to medium agency that are actually kind of crap. That's with no disrespect. I know there are some very good ones out there. I work with some very good small, medium agencies that are great, but most aren't. Most agencies of any size are shit, bad value, and most of their staff suck and just eat resources. But like, for me, as a one man agency that can either do the stuff on my own or bring in one or two or seven or 10 or 15 people and manage them, because that's what I've done in ad agencies before, managing huge teams, there's an opportunity to be the cheaper, better option. than an agency that you used to almost just about be able to afford, but now can't afford. I'm hoping so because I'm a luxury for ad agencies. They bring me on when they have a big pitch and they need a big hitter. They bring me on when their big client is pissed off because they haven't cracked a brief for 3 months and now the time is running out and they need to bring on like a special resource. Like I'm expensive because freelancers always are. And so, I'm either brought in when shit hits the fan, or brought in when they want to throw everything at an opportunity. And at the moment, like they obviously clients are pulling their briefs out left and right. The stuff that's in the system is being done by staff at home. The last thing they've got too many staff currently, and the last thing they want is to bring on more expensive external people. So it's a screw up for my main job in the immediate and near term. But I'm going to look at it as an opportunity in terms of that's how I'm going to pitch it and market it. I'm going to be like, look, guys, if you can no longer afford your agency, the same. If you can no longer afford the same agency that sometimes call me to do the work, let me take it on as an independent, and
Mm.
it'll cost you half, which is still for me double.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to, yeah, keep going for yourself. But like you say as well, from the perspective of you having this time now to kind of really run with one of your passions in that, and possibly turn that passion into, yeah, your main source of living. So maybe, yeah, buying the place next door might, yeah, not be
In the
the
long
immediate.
term, it will have been an absolute blessing. Yeah, that's dude. If that's what you're saying, if I
Yeah,
interrupted you correctly, sorry.
yeah,
Um,
that's great.
again, I'm not for a second saying, "Oh, yay, global catastrophe! Look at me with a little bit of money." Literally, not a lot, some little bit of money that happened to come in at the right time. I'm on a long, lonely holiday, and I can draw my cartoons and write my poems. And yay, pandemic! But I mean, if I end up with a successful business doing something I genuinely love that brings in all of the skills that I've been nurturing and developing since a small child, and add to that all of the skills I've had to learn doing sort of creative but not fun or rewarding work in advertising. Obviously, some projects you do that you're very proud of are very rewarding. I've made some ads I'm very proud of, and done some great work with some amazing people, but it isn't for fun. If I had the option to do that shit or stay home and play PlayStation, I would not want to go and be on an insane ad deadline. This is shit that I'm absolutely like I love to do. It's and if I can make that into a business that's not going to make me a squillionaire but becomes a viable thing. So basically, while we don't know how fucked we are for the future, but let's assume this is going to be a once in a lifetime or twice in a lifetime thing, right? Let's assume that this bizarre thing is like it's a bizarre anomaly, and life's going to go back to normal. You are never going to get this opportunity again. You are never going to get 3 weeks of forced isolation. And again, it might be this might be the first in a long series of pandemics that then ends the human race. You never know. But in all likelihood, shit's going to go back to normal eventually, either because everyone has got it, a bunch of people have died, and those who haven't died have recovered, or because we get a vaccine, which is the most likely thing that will eventually get rid of it, or because we isolate well enough that the thing dies out as people recover. Likely, you're going to be doing your job or a similar job to it in the near to medium term. This might be your only chance to sit and do what you want, unless what you want is to well, go and do like physical to play rugby. Um, because I'd love to be boxing. I'm by no means like a pro athlete, but I'm a very passionate amateur boxer, and it's one of the things that keeps my fat ass in something resembling, like health. I'm pretty fit for a man of my size, and I love to box, and I wish I was doing that. I've just recently picked up yoga, and I just started doing it. I got like 3 lessons in, really enjoyed it, found a fantastic young instructor who's very cool. And like as soon as you get started, you have to stop. So you can't do whatever you want. But I mean, it's a huge opportunity to just do that thing that you've always thought to yourself, oh, one day I've got to do that, or I should have done that when I was younger. Like, do the thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the main takeout from this is that use this time as an opportunity to really run after those passion projects and that, and yeah, don't like sit back and yeah,
You're
enjoy
never going
Netflix
to
for
get
three
the
weeks.
chance again. I mean,
Yeah.
like as I said, in all likelihood, you're never going to get the chance again. And do you have an iPad Pro? Like one
No,
from any iPad from Pro from the
I
last like
don't
4 or 5 years?
no, I don't have an iPad, unfortunately.
Rue, if you have got a bit of spare cash and you like to draw and you're hoping to get back into it, I can tell you I mean, it's nice to have an iPad. Just they're useful, handy things for around the house in general, obviously. But then if you want to draw, it's an amazing thing, man. It's a and Samsung have got some decent tablets with styluses that you can draw with. But the iPad with pencil and Procreate app is like it's a dream, man. If anyone listening as well is wanting to get back into it, so it emulates paint and ink and charcoal, and it's just a lovely all of the benefits of digital, but with that analog handcrafted input. Um, it's the best belated like best long term invest. I bought it like in 2017, and now I'm using it finally properly for other stuff than like iPadding around the house. And
Yeah, it's something I'm definitely gonna have to look into in that.
especially if they're going to lock you oaks down over there.
Hopefully not. Um,
I feel like they
but
kind of should. I mean, voluntary self isolation doesn't work if unless 90% of everyone does it.
it's been pretty good. People have been pretty good over here with regards to that. From the little town I live in, that people are taking it quite seriously. The streets are dead quiet, especially at the moment. They're usually quite busy this time of the day on a Friday. And yeah, they're really quiet. And yeah, to see the amount of people that usually walk past our place is probably uh, a tenth of it usually.
Yeah,
So
you guys are looking better. I'm just checking it now. It's to 11,000, 10,945, 578 dead, 135 recovered. So just short of 11,000 there. But that's the whole of the UK. Italy being the biggest shit show, 62,000 people, 8,215 dead. I mean, 62,000 people properly sick. That wouldn't normally be sick. Bear in mind, hospitals are not. They don't only treat COVID, right? Like they're busy. Sometimes if you've got good medical aid and whatever, and you're fortunate enough, you get something wrong with you, and they say to you like, we can't offer you a private room or a two-person room. You're in a room with four people because the hospital's busy. A lot of broken
yeah,
arms and cracked skulls and fucking drug overdoses this week. So
yeah,
62,000 extra people in your hospitals
it's
or,
a
or,
lot. It's a
or
lot.
needing medical care. It's heavy, man. So yeah, we got to flatten that curve, yo, because it's,
Yeah,
even if like Rich says, the thing doesn't completely go away and people need to get back to work, if we can have the cases of people that get it, and especially those that need hospitalization, spread out over 6 months instead of over 6 weeks, the hospital system can deal with it much better.
yeah, and I think that's where we'll end it. Um, Thanks, Gord, for your time. Muchly appreciated.
Dude, I don't have a lot going on aside from some arts and crafts projects, so sorry I talk so much, but I think that's what you came to me for, right?
That's correct.
Well, good. Thanks for the chat, man. It's always a pleasure, and good luck over there.